Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of Leading People. I'm your host, Chitong from EngageRocket, the fastest growing people analytics tech company here in Southeast Asia. And in this series, we are exploring different aspects of how leaders are navigating the current pandemic and the economic situation as well, to be able to extract insights, best practices, and so on from those at the top of their field. And today, I have the privilege of speaking with Mr. Tony Khoo, the Chief Executive Officer of EM Services. EM Services is a joint venture between the HDB, Housing Development Board, and Keppel Land Limited, and is one of Singapore's largest estate and property management companies with a suite of services across residential, commercial, and industrial properties. Over the past 32 years, managing hundreds of thousands of properties in Singapore, EM Services has established a very strong track record in the management of townships and properties across Singapore. So welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you, Jitong. I'm happy always to talk to you.
Thank you so much. And how would you describe, I've described a bit about what EM Services does, but how would you describe what it does and particularly the role in the company that you play as CEO?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very glorious description of EM Services, what you said earlier. So in essence, EM Services is a township management company, all right? I mean, that's our core business. And in that sense, we are working for the town councils, you know. So town councils, in most people's perception, that it's, quite a dull, very old-fashioned type of organization, So my role as the CEO, I think the most important role for me, for EM Services, is to build a company that talents want to work for. It is about creating a dynamic environment that everyone is motivated to do his and her best. I think that is, my primary role. We want to attract young talent to EM Services because I think township management is very critical in Singapore. We 80% of our residents live in HDB, and Singapore is famous for its public housing. So I think we need talent to maintain, if not to improve, to maintain the standard of our public housing in Singapore.
Absolutely, and it must be such a privilege to be working in a role that allows you to impact the lives of 80% of the Singaporeans. It's a huge proportion.
Yes, it's heavy responsibility.
Yeah. And for yourself, how do you organize your direct reports and teams? Because every CEO has to manage their organization differently. So how do you go about organizing your direct reports and the teams that report to you?
Of course, from a company structure perspective, the company is organized vertically by business unit, and of course also horizontally by corporate capabilities. When I mean by corporate capabilities is the same functionality. For example, if you are a social media person, although you may be working in different business units, we tend to pull you all together, so that you talk to one another, and then you compare notes, and then you learn from one another in a different setting. So it is both vertical as well as horizontally structured.
Okay, so you do have that kind of like horizontal community of practice kind of structure, and then the vertical business unit structure as well.
Yes, in terms of reporting, it's vertical, because you are responsible for your profit center, for example. But in terms of your function, in terms of your knowledge, in terms of your capability, we are also organized horizontally, teams, and these are kind of can be informal structure, can be on social type of setting where monthly or quarterly you just come together, have a cup of coffee, talk about your problems in your business unit, so that you share your problems, your headaches. And then some people say, hey, actually this is no problem, I know exactly how to do it. So that's where the sharing is. Yeah. So we do it, formally, vertically, and informally, we do it horizontally. Yeah. I think it helps. Yeah.
You can get that cross-pollination of ideas and so on from...
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And for those of the viewers who are maybe not familiar with township management, how are your BUs structured, and like what's the nature of the business like in terms of, like you mentioned, profit centers?
Yes. So for township management or town council, we basically look at two very fundamental aspects of work. One is, we are property, so-called, or facilities manager. We make sure the buildings, the infrastructure, the physical thing in the township are well maintained. If not, then we have to repair them. Or if there's any facilities that need to be upgraded, we will do that. So those are the physical aspect of township. But more importantly, is also the soft side of the township, where the residents, they are living there. They some of them are studying there, and they have social needs. And that is where we say, make sure we look after the social aspect of the residents. For example, security is very important to them. The green is very important to them. They want their estate to be clean, secure, so that after a hard day work, when you come home, it feels like home. And not another so-called third party area or that sort of thing. You really want to come home. That's why it's heartland. That's why, yeah. So that's the social aspect. We need to make sure we look after the hardware as well as the software. Yeah.
I see. Okay, shifting gears a little bit to talk about the pandemic, and you mentioned earlier you've been working from home since circuit breaker. As it's coming 4 or 5 months now.
Yes.
What are some of the changes that you've seen in your work life that have been caused by this pandemic, particularly because you do have a lot of your staff that are on site that need to be present, and then how have you been navigating all of this within EM Services?
Okay, I think personally for me, my work life has not really changed that much because most of my work involve meetings. So instead of conducting a physical meeting now, I do a lot of virtual meetings, like you and me now. And in fact, I have more virtual meetings these days, because you can pack them back to back effectively. You can almost jump from one meeting to the other within seconds. So I have more meetings now. I think the part that what I miss most is, in a physical world, in a so-called COVID-19 world, you can have these coffee sessions. You have these coffee sessions with your staff to find out what's happening on the ground. You have coffee sessions with your client to see, how well, we are providing our services. You can have coffee sessions with our business partner, and find out, what are the new opportunities out there. But nowadays, you can't have coffee over, the virtual meeting. It's a little bit difficult. But I think now with phase 2, Big 10, I think we are allowed to have coffees up to 5%. So that is kind of returning back. I think that part is important, to build that relationship, because you don't want to go to your customer or go to your business partner when you are in trouble. All right. So I think you want to build up that relationship, and that relationship tend to be built up over a more social setting, over a cup of coffee, and I think that is very important. So that is the part that I miss most. Other than that, my life has been quite normal. A lot of meetings, as I mentioned. More meetings than the usual. So that's for me. But I think when it comes to work with my colleagues and my staff, I think what has been really so-called highlighted by this pandemic is that I think there's a need for us to change the way we work. So there are a couple of things that I thought is very important, that we need to really expedite in this so-called post-pandemic period, is that we have to really upskill our digital skill, because now we can do a lot of work through technology. For example, I mentioned earlier to you before our meeting is that some of our staff are working from home, and then they go straight to site instead of going to office. So going to site to work, and how do they so-called record some of the work they've done? And nowadays we are all using technology. We are using all mobile handphones. Through mobile handphone, taking pictures. They can take pictures. Record down what are the defects, and in fact issues out works order to our contractor immediately on the spot. So those are technology. I think after this now, we will have to expedite those because we are testing with the technologies. Not everyone is comfortable using such technology these days, especially some of my older staff. So I think during this period or moving forward, we will have to do more of that. Teach them about digital technology that is going to help them rather than take away their job, something like that. So yes, yeah. So definitely moving forward, yes, we will expedite some of these so-called digital transformation initiative.
Yeah, so you almost this pandemic has accelerated the pace of digital transformation for you guys.
Yes, no doubt. Yes.
And would you say that because we've encountered this with other organizations that have a hybrid workforce, some that have to work on site and are so-called exposed to the possibility of infection, whereas others have the ability to work from home, but then at the same time, the people who are working on site, they're also closer to the boss, and then those who are working from home are further from the boss. So they're also concerned that, hey, maybe I might be promoted more slowly, than my peers because they are closer to the boss. Have you had these dynamics that you had to manage in EM services?
Not really. I think partly, I think the way we organize the so-called EM services is that communication is very open. Okay. I mean, with technology, communication to your boss is just a click away. I think that is what we practice. So even if your boss is not with you on site, he still read your report on a daily basis because of our technology platform. Whatever you do, it's almost, we have a so-called dashboard, operation dashboard that your boss or the bosses will look at it almost on a daily basis. So he knows whether you're working or not. So that's one. Of course, the other one is we have performance metrics, key performance indicators for all the work that you are doing. So we know whether you are performing or you are doing your work. So it's quite transparent, Yeah. So it's, I think, those days where you need to be close to your boss to get promoted, I think that is idea of the past now. Yeah. Now with technology, I immediately know whether in fact we know exactly where our staff is, at this moment, using technology. So you can't even run away.
You cannot run. That's a really good point, actually. And have you found that you've had to adapt your own people management style to help your team be more productive during this time? Or do you find that actually the familiarity with some of these digital tools actually hasn't changed your own management style that much?
I think in terms of my own personal management style, it has not changed that much because I tend to be quite people-oriented, and I tend to give them a lot of room to maneuver, to improve, to perform, So I do not monitor, my staff, every second, although technology can do that, but it's more outcome-based type of management, So I will give you certain projects and then a certain outcome and sort of KPI. And if you can achieve that within the time frame, that's fine, I will only pay more attention to you if, let's say, you are unable to deliver things that I've asked you to do. So in fact, the more you see me is not so good. Yeah.
And do you do, so I'm hearing that there's that focus on outcomes, there's a certain degree of autonomy that you give the people that work with you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, other special things that you do to encourage a culture of high performance within your team?
Yes, I think, the old saying that success breeds success. So I think that's very important, even especially in a company, everyone wants to work for a company that is successful, a company that is growing, So every time, any of our colleagues have some sort of a success story to tell, we will celebrate, we will tell it, and then, I can tell you, everybody is motivated to do better, once you hear your colleagues has been successful, So I think that is a way for us to motivate them. to create a high performing team, as you say, because, when you see your colleague can do that, then in your mind, I would always encourage that if your colleague can do it, I'm sure you can do it, So, with a little bit of encouragement, that's how we motivate one another. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, because then it does double duty, right? Because one, you recognize the person that did well publicly, everybody can see. And then at the same time, you motivate everybody else that sees that as well. That's
Correct.
a good point.
Yeah.
Are there signs that, especially now, right, where you might have to assess these signs remotely through digital tools, are there signs that you look out for to be able to tell you whether someone is actually engaged at work, they still believe in the mission, or whether they're just cruising, kind of waiting for the next time they can start sending their CVs around?
Oh, the signs are very easy to look at, when they are motivated and they are engaged, when they talk to you, the body language is very different, they are very motivated and they want to talk more and they have a lot of ideas, they'll tell you this and tell you that, and whatever they do is tend to be outside what you have given them, the normal assignment, they'll say, hey, can we look at this way so that it can be much better, yeah. I mean, if you are not so engaged staff, he'll say, oh, I've done my work, no issue, right? Then that's it, So it's quite different, just by the way, their body language, the way they talk, and the energy that they have, when they talk to you, it's completely different, yeah. So when you look at those people with that sort of energy, they are very engaged, yeah.
Do you find that comes through even through like Zoom and Teams kind of meetings?
Oh, yes. In fact, you don't have to look at them. You just, sometimes we just talk on the phone, I mean, WhatsApp or whatever, voicemail. And then you can hear the energy that come out from their voices. You can hear, yeah.
Well, that's a good point. Shifting gears a little bit again. So this is about your own personal leadership journey. What is one mistake that you made in the past that you've learned from and then you've corrected effectively to adjust your leadership style today?
Yeah, I think, when you're young and when you kind of have a little bit of success, along the way, you tend to think that, and when you are made a manager or head of a division, you tend to think that you are the boss and all bosses have all the great ideas, you tend to do that when you are younger, but I think that's not the case. In fact, as you go along, as you get older, you tend to, realize that there are a lot of more clever people around you, just that you must make sure, you know how to, so-called be your friends and together, and do things better. Yeah. So the thing that I advised, those young bosses or young leaders, young managers is, great ideas don't just come from the bosses. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Especially sometimes, I mean, we in Singapore have been fortunate, right? We have a visionary leader of the country for so long, and Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, right? And we always tend to look towards the boss.
Correct.
And sometimes actually, we as a boss, you have to let your team shine, right? They are the ones that have good ideas.
Yes. I think a boss, in these days, should play a role of a coach. I think it's a coaching leader is very important, because a coach tends to bring out the best of the person. So a coach will identify the strengths of the particular person or the weaknesses, and that's where the coach help to make sure the person will perform the best under the different circumstances. I think that's, to me, is a real role of a leader. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to shift to asking some rapid fire questions. So you don't have to give long answers to each of these. Like, they're intended to be like 30 seconds, but really for the viewers to get to know you better as a person.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, so the first question is, as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An engineer, civil engineer. Yeah.
Civil engineer.
Yeah, so that I can build my own house. I used to live in a kampong in Malaysia,
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought when I grow up, I want to be an engineer to build my own house. Yeah. But have not realized that dream yet.
Very nice. And the second question is, what was the book or books that have most greatly influenced your life?
Yeah, I think as a young boy, I don't really read a lot of books. So I remember one book that I read was really so-called interest me is this Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, I think that really influenced me in the way I think, in the way kind of how should I live my life. You know, it's not just about working. It's about letting money work for you, don't work for money. You know, I think that is a very strong concept that I've learned from that particular book, and it influenced me. You know, the way I make certain decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good choice. Robert Kiyosaki, right? I think.
Yes.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is one thing on your bucket list that you would like to do in the next 12 months? Don't know whether you keep a bucket list, but
Yeah.
what is one? If you don't, then what is one thing that you really want to do in the next 12 months?
Of course, because of COVID-19 and because of CB period, and you can't go out to do a lot of things. But one thing that you can do during this period is go exercise. Okay, and you can do it without wearing mask. So because of that opportunity, I've been doing a fair bit of running. Cycling. So I thought maybe in the next 12 months, if there's opportunity, if so-called if the world is kind of lifted for so-called major event, I'm looking at maybe can I do a triathlon,
Wow.
next 12 months, but simple one, not the long distance, not an Ironman. Yeah.
I've never heard of a simple triathlon.
No, simple as in, you can finish your cycling and do a bit of swimming. That's quite simple. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a really worthwhile ambition. I salute you. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, last question. You gave some good advice earlier for first-time managers. Like don't always think that you're the boss and you need to be the one to generate all the good ideas. In the management literature today, actually you see there's a lot of bad advice for managers as well. Is there any advice that you think managers or even first-time managers should ignore because it just hasn't worked out in your own experience?
Yeah, I think like what I've said earlier, if you are in a kind of a leadership position, I think don't be proud, don't be arrogant, be humble. I think only when you are humble, you will listen. Only when you are humble, then you are able to see your own weaknesses. I think that's where you will have a real opportunity to make improvement, and actually in the end you become a better person. So I think the advice from me to young leaders is that don't be too arrogant. There's always smarter people around you.
That's a really, really good piece of advice. So being humble, listen hard, and be a coach to your team, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and experience with us, Tony. This has been another episode of Leading People, and we've been speaking with Mr. Tony Khoo, CEO at EM Services. And I've been your host, Chitong from EngageRocket. And if you like this interview, please follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our channel. Thanks so much, Tony, and thanks so much for listening.
Thanks, Chitong. Stay safe, stay healthy in this post-COVID-19 period.
Good advice indeed. Thank you, Tony.
Hey, bye-bye.